Welcome to One Brothas Mind, and I am KD Smooth. Today we will question and challenge popular information and views from a B1 perspective, while we expose the real facts you need. We do this to strengthen your logical, critical, and discerning thinking skills. Because in today's world, hard choices are mandatory and they come with consequences. So you need all the information. And at One Brother's Mind, we do this from a B1 Yeshua the Christ followers perspective. Now, if you're not ready, you better get ready with Katie Smooth at One Brother's Mind.
The time for scared, lip trembling, word changing, self-denying, compromising, knees shaking black people is over. If you have something to say, speak up with authority and conviction. If not, sit down and shut up. We have to have the power to tell the truth, to say whatever is necessary, to do what needs to be done, whatever it is, no matter who it may hurt.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. It's Katie Smooth coming back at you with a new report. I pray you all are doing well. Shalom, family. In today's report, we are going to discuss this issue on your screen. It's our 7th installment in our systematic white supremacy series that we have here at One Brother's Mind. This is our 7th installment. There will be many more. But in today's report, we're going to cover and discuss this issue of nationwide U.S. police gangs and terrorism they inflict on so-called black people. On us, family. Yeah. I'll show you in a minute, but there's quite a number of these situations, this police gang terrorism that is going on all across the U.S., basically every state. But here recently, a good number of them have been being exposed, and yeah, unfortunately, family, we got another one coming out of Louisiana. We got this issue out of Baton Rouge. On your screen, what you're looking at is called the Brave Cave. That's what the race soldiers called it there in Baton Rouge. Okay? So if you haven't heard about this one, real quick, I'm going to share a brief article and some elements from this article from NPR. An article titled FBI Investigates Alleged Abuse in Baton Rouge Police Building called the Brave Cave. This was put out on September 23rd, 2023 by the Associated Press. I'm not going to read the whole article, but I'm going to share some pieces of the article to bring you up to speed so you know what specifically occurred here in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Okay, it begins with the FBI said Friday it has opened a civil rights investigation into allegations in recent lawsuits that police in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, assaulted so-called drug suspects, not convicts, but suspects. At least that's what they're calling it. That the police in Baton Rouge assaulted drug suspects they detained in an obscure warehouse, which is on your screen, known as the Brave Cave. Yeah. In one case, a man, the man that you see on your screen, says he was taken into the warehouse. Let's say this. It's being reported that it's the man that's on your screen sitting in a chair. But in one case, a man, allegedly, that's what I'm saying, a man says he was taken into the warehouse and beaten so severely he needed hospital care before being booked into jail. In a separate case, a woman claims she was strip searched with an officer using a flashlight to scan her body cavities. Okay? Since the first complaint was filed last month, the city's mayor of Louisiana, of Baton Rouge, has ordered the facility closed. The police department has disbanded its street crimes unit, the gang, the Brave Cave Squad, and an officer at the center of the allegations, listen to this, family, the son of a current deputy chief, has resigned and was arrested as a part of these allegations, these lawsuits, on a simple battery charge. That's all. Just a simple battery charge. They've been torturing black people here in the Brave Cave for who knows how long, but I guarantee it's been more than 10 years. I guarantee you that. But so far, only one officer has been arrested on a simple battery charge. The actual son of a current deputy chief. Yeah. The article goes on to say this latest scandal, meaning there's been many more prior to this, this latest scandal adds to a long list of corruption and misconduct allegations plaguing the Baton Rouge Police Department, which came under significant scrutiny following the 2016 fatal police deletion of our brother Alton Sterling. If y'all remember that one. If you don't, just Google Alton Sterling for my young listeners. You'll be caught up to speed. A 37-year-old black man. In 2021, a corruption probe into the department's narcotics division led to criminal charges and internal discipline against officers accused of stealing drugs from evidence and lying on police reports. I'm going to go over that one more time. In 2021, a corruption probe into the department's narcotics division led to criminal charges. It doesn't say convictions. It just says it led to charges and internal discipline against the officers that were accused of stealing drugs from evidence and lying on police reports. It doesn't say convictions. Don't miss that, family. Or it doesn't say jail time either with those convictions. It goes on with Baton Rouge Police Chief Murphy Paul, who was hired to lead the agency in the wake or after the Alton Sterling's unaliving, said he was so concerned, oh my goodness, over the recent warehouse claims, the Brave Cave, that he drove to the FBI New Orleans Field Division and asked them to review the allegations. He's trying to make it look like he's doing his job. And how? He's trying to make it look like he didn't know nothing about the Brave Cave. This is all brand new to him. Let's go on. There were some mistakes made. Paul told the Associated Press, acknowledging that his internal affairs division initially failed to investigate. I promise you we'll get to the bottom of this. Now, the article leaves this part out as far as what they failed to investigate, so I'm about to add that part myself. This seems to have come to light, family, this whole recent issue, when there was a black woman that was detained in this brave cave you see on your screen. The woman that reported that she was strip searched and cavity searched with a flashlight. I'm not saying there was any penetration, at least not yet, but she was strip searched with a flashlight to view her body cavities inside this warehouse. So you ask yourself, this is clearly not a police department facility. There's nothing to do with the police department in this separate warehouse. Nothing. But this is where they took the sister, strip searched her, and viewed her body cavities. You say, well, why were they messing with this sister? Why? She was, well, let me go on with the article. It'll explain that part. This most recent lawsuit, which attorneys filed earlier this week on behalf of Ternell Brown, that's the sister that I'm speaking of. They left out the body cavities part. That's why I wanted to add that. It goes on to say Ternell Brown alleges officers pulled her over in June, took her to the same black site, this warehouse, and strip searched her for contraband. Talking about they were looking for drugs, right? She was released without charges because she had no drugs. When officers, let's back up. She was released without charges because they knew she had no drugs in the first place. They just decided and wanted to do this to this sister. Okay? Again, she was released without charges when officers concluded the prescription drugs in her possession were illegal. Now, this article leaves this out, but according to other reports, basically she had a prescription drug bottle in her possession and, on her person, in her vehicle, what have you. But the prescription drug, in other reports, the prescription drug bottle had different prescription drugs inside. And they're reporting in other reports that that's the reason why these white supremacist race soldiers detained her and took her to this non-police, non-law enforcement location, this black site, and did this to her, trying to get her to confess or come up with some other proof of her guilt in regards to possession of illegal drugs. Now, pause right there for a moment, family. Having different prescription drugs, different prescription pills inside of one prescription bottle, as far as I know, y'all drop it in the comments if y'all know, that's not illegal. That's not breaking a law. And furthermore, many people that have multiple prescriptions that they have to take daily or what have you, many people will take one prescription drug bottle, and put their today's prescription pills that they need to take inside of that one bottle. So there's different pills. And then they'll go to work or wherever they got to go. And then when it's time to take their prescriptions for the day, they just pour those out of that one bottle and take them. Purely out of the convenience of only carrying one bottle of their, or 1 day's worth, or 1 dose worth of their prescriptions. That's all. People do that all over the country. Again, if y'all know somehow that that's illegal to do, drop it in comments. Put it in chat. But as far as I know, that's not illegal to do. But that's what the situation was. Again, this article at NPR, it leaves those details out, but that's what they're getting at. Okay? Further in the article, they go on to say the attorneys for Brown and the other gentleman that was beaten, they're still, let's say this. The attorney Brown, the sister, hired her an attorney and filed a lawsuit against the Baton Rouge Police Department. That's how this came out. Okay? Prior to doing that, this sister went and filed all of the complaints that she was supposed to file against the police department at the police department. That's why earlier in the article, it says that the chief police dude acknowledged that the police or internal affairs department failed to investigate those initial complaints of hers and, trust me, many other people. Okay? But this sister Brown, Tarnell Brown, she had whatever she needed. She was able to put together what she could, and she actually hired her own attorney and sued the police department civilly in a civil lawsuit, and brought out and exposed all of what they did to her. And because of that civil lawsuit coming out, that's where the full investigation or reinvestigation and the FBI's investigation got their origins from, where this story comes from, on this one sister, Tarnell Brown. They had to go through this. Oh, Lord. So it wasn't criminal charges. It wasn't investigation. They refused to do that in the police department, and she had to file a civil lawsuit. Okay? So with her civil lawsuit coming to light, her attorney is getting calls from many other so-called black people in Baton Rouge reporting they went through similar was taken to the same brave cave and tortured or beaten or sexually humiliated in this same brave cave. So basically, family, this is just the tip of the iceberg. Many more lawsuits, and then hopefully eventually charges are going to come out of this. So you got to continue to pay attention to this story, because it's going to get deeper. Okay? And so one of the points that the attorneys made in this article, this NBR article, was that even those who were not beaten in the Brave Cave, at the torture warehouse, we now know were still sexually humiliated in some way or another in this warehouse. That's not an official police building or facility. It has nothing to do with the police. Okay? The officer, the son of the deputy chief who resigned, Troy Lawrence Jr., has been the subject of several civil rights lawsuits and excessive force complaints in recent years. His father, Troy Lawrence Sr., was promoted to deputy chief in 2020 after commanding the street crimes unit. Pause right there. The son has been fired and is facing a battery charge. Troy Lawrence Jr. The father, Troy Lawrence Sr., was promoted to deputy chief of what department? The street crimes unit, this exact same unit. So the father was the chief and the son was one of the officers on the street crime unit that was taking so-called black people to this brave cave, this torture warehouse on your screen. But so far, the only person that has gotten even a simple battery charge is the son, Troy Lawrence Jr. Everybody else didn't know what was happening. Everybody else, oh, what was this? Everybody else is surprised. Really? Let's continue. And it goes on to say which the warehouse went by the acronym Brave Cage for Baton Rouge Area Violence Elimination. Okay? It continues with, according to a lawsuit filed last month, he repeatedly turned off and muted this Troy Lawrence Jr., turned off and muted his body cam during his interaction with Jeremy Lee, the suspect who ended up hospitalized with broken bones and other injuries inside the warehouse. Officers punched and kicked him while he screamed for help, the lawsuit alleges. After he was violently interrogated and arrested, the only criminal charge prosecutors pursued against Lee was resisting arrest. Again, I believe this was this brother that's on your screen also. So after all that, after they nearly unalived him, the prosecutor charged him with resisting arrest in a torture facility. Yeah, family. Yeah. You hearing it right? You're hearing it right. It goes further to say that Thomas Frampton, an attorney representing both Lee and Turnell Brown, said his team has heard from dozens, plural, more people alleging abuse inside the Brave Cave warehouse, and they plan to file additional lawsuits. Yeah, so that's what's going on and been going on there in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. That's the latest. So again, expect more information, more lawsuits, and hopefully a whole gang of far more severe charges than simple battery against these satanic white supremacist race soldiers in Baton Rouge that's been doing this to people for, I would suspect, more than 10 years, maybe 20 or 30 years, maybe more, and getting away with it. Okay? So, family, with that said, what I really want to focus on here, in addition to that story, is the issue of what you saw in the thumbnail. This is a national U.S. state-sponsored white supremacist terrorism program. This is in basically every state and major city across the U.S. They have these so-called goon squads or black sites where they're torturing us. They've been doing it for decades. Here's a few examples more recent on your screen. The 5 black officers, most of y'all are familiar with that one, out of Memphis and what they did to our brother Terry Nichols in the bottom right corner. But are you aware? Did you hear about the information that came out of my home state, Muncie, Indiana being my home state? These officers on the bottom left, and the satanic terrorism they were doing as a goon squad to people in Muncie, Indiana. Oh, wait. Let's go to the top right corner. The 6 officers there, the top right corner, is labeled Goon Squad. Oh, they're out of Mississippi. It's a county just outside of Jackson, Mississippi. These are the 6 satanic white supremacist race soldiers that attacked those 2 black brothers in their own house, tortured them, beat them, sexually assaulted them, even put their gun, one of them put their gun inside of one of the brothers' mouths as a part of the torture, and literally shot his gun. And it severed off and damaged this brother's tongue and exited. The exit wound was came out of the other side of his neck. And don't forget, there were reports there out of Kansas City in regards to this. The officer's face is the one with the large face behind it. He's an actual police officer that has had decades of terrorizing so-called black people in Kansas City, putting false charges on people, getting them thrown in jail on trumped up charges. That's just how this officer and others were operating. Their goon squad in Kansas City. All 4 of these images on your screen, family, you can go to One Brothas Mind. I have separate reports where I go into the details of what was happening and what's going on in all 4 of these reports. Mississippi, Memphis, Tennessee, Muncie, Indiana, Kansas City, Missouri. But wait. Oh, there's more. In Los Angeles, y'all ain't gonna believe this, family. The Los Angeles police departments and sheriff departments, they have their own Wikipedia page. It's on your screen. That lists the known gang names of Los Angeles police crews or gangs in the police and sheriff departments in Los Angeles. The list is right on your screen. Pause the video. Blow it up, whatever you got to do. The Barbados, you see them on there. Jump Out Boys. I'm just going down the list. The Posse. They got their own Wikipedia page. It's so bad. Yeah. But you thought that was all? No. Remember this? The black site that they had in Chicago? Where they was doing the exact same thing that they're doing in Baton Rouge? Attacking so-called black people and not taking them to the police department. They're taking them to the black sites that are just random, empty sites where they can literally torture them and hold people for however long they want to, beating them and doing God knows what else to them. This is one of the main tactics that the goon squads all over the United States have always used to get forced so-called confessions to crimes. If you're arrested as a so-called black person in the United States and the police officers that arrest you pull up to some warehouse or some old building like this that has no connection with the police whatsoever, and they drive inside of it and bring you out the car, and you just in a room, you're in a place, you may not even know where you are. And now they get to take all the time they want, days and days if they want to. They get to do whatever they want to you, and there's nothing. In most cases, you're cuffed. You're just sitting there, being terrorized, being tortured, would you not eventually be willing to say whatever they tell you they want you to say in an attempt to try to get them to bring you out of this place or these places to survive them? Wouldn't you be willing to confess whatever? Because you're in there with these white supremacist race soldiers, these satanic devils, and at any moment, you can be deleted. And they'll make up whatever lie story they want to, and they'll get away with it. Again, family, this has been going on all over the United States. In fact, here at One Brothas Mind, I argue this has been going on since slavery was still happening in the U.S. This has always been happening. This has never stopped happening. You think? No, Katie Smooth. Well, let's go back a little further. Let's just go back to Hurricane Katrina. This is the goon squad that was rolling around during Hurricane Katrina, and specifically, if you don't know about it, there's a report and story out about the Danzer, Danzier, Danzer Bridge shooting, where literally the police officers were shooting at and deleting survivors, so-called black people, that had escaped and were survived Hurricane Katrina. They're just trying to make it to safety, walking with what they could carry in their hands. And these satanic devils on your screen were just rolling around, opening fire and deleting random so-called black people like it wasn't nothing, and lied about everything, covered it all up for years. And they finally completed most of the investigation and found out what was happening. And then they finally, in this image here, they indicted 7 police officers that were involved. It was more, but they only indicted 7 of them. And so this is the image of them. They're literally walking into the police jail as a gang together. Look at them. And here's what's crazy about it. They walked in to turn themselves in as a gang right here on your screen, right? If you look at what's on your screen, the little caption paragraph says, with more than 200 supporters applauding them as the goon squad in New Orleans for the Danzer Bridge shooting, as they walked in to turn themselves in together as a group for their indictments, 200 supporters, mostly our white brothers and sisters, were standing outside the police station applauding them for just... I don't think y'all really understand fully what I am saying to y'all. I really don't think y'all understand the words that's coming out my mouth. Yeah. 200 people outside as this gang goon squad of satanic white supremacist terroristic officers walk in to the police department to turn themselves in after being indicted. 200 people were outside applauding them as they walked down the street. Yeah. So y'all can miss me with this. Oh, this stuff ain't been going on. It's nothing new. It's how it's always been. Which is why, or one of the reasons why, especially for my white brothers and sisters that are listening. One, so-called black people, we've been telling y'all and filing lawsuits and complaints and everything since slavery so-called ended, which slavery never ended, y'all. It was only expanded. I got reports here, One Brothas Mind. Go to the One Brothas Mind YouTube page, click the live tab and scroll down. You'll find those reports as well. I digress. It's one of the reasons why most of us, or say many of us, so-called black people in the U.S., when we hear of reports where a police officer has been unalived terribly, horribly, many of us so-called black people hear that news and just be like, yeah, okay, whatever. Isn't that interesting? Because they've been doing it to us the entire time. Since the beginnings of this country, it has never stopped. They've been doing it and getting away with it. No justice at all, for the most part. Let's continue. So, some of y'all are asking, well, why has this been happening? Some of my younger listeners, y'all are like, well, why is this happening? What is this? What's this all about? Here you go.
Shit. They on this couch you sitting on, them shoes you got on your feet, this building, this school, this country, you. We behind enemy lines, dawg.
That's why. We still behind enemy lines. So, real quick, I've gone over this multiple times in many different ways, but real quick, I'm going to blow through it again, especially for my young listeners, for y'all to understand the game. Okay? This country, this white supremacist, racist, satanic country, since slavery, it's never stopped. What they do is they economically starve so-called black people, so-called black communities. They economically starve it. The schools are trash and underfunded. So-called black people can't get loans, business loans or home improvement loans or mostly anything. The businesses with decent paying jobs all withdraw and move away out of the so-called black communities, and they only leave either no jobs or extremely low paying jobs. So most of us in our communities, we are being economically starved. I mean, have you ever noticed, you watch the news in your city, in your town, every report that you hear on mainstream media about some new business or company that's bringing jobs to your city, your state, your town area, the location that they're going to build this new office or new business facility, it's never your neighborhood. It's always neighborhoods that are in the suburbs or neighborhoods that are predominantly white. You ever notice that? It's almost never in your neighborhood. If it is, if it's like a Walmart or something or some other low-paying job, they'll put those in because they just need bodies or laborers to do the slave labor for low pay or slave pay. They'll do those. But jobs that are going to pay salaries that are family sustaining or family living wage salaries, $20, $25, $30 an hour or more, Oh, you'll never see those companies and those jobs in so-called black communities, but they're putting them in all the other surrounding suburban areas, predominantly white areas. They always do that. You see that? Just a little extra tidbit. So, so-called black people in the U.S. are being economically starved, right? This is the game. That's the first level, economic starvation. The second part of the game is because we're being economically starved, many of us eventually, for one reason or another, we move mentally into survival mode. We see what's going on. We see that they are economically starving us and that it's on purpose. We don't have the opportunity to live the American dream, to get business loans, to, do things to improve our lives. Most of us, right? So many of us end up moving into survival mode. And yeah, you end up, hey man, okay, they're stealing from us and have stolen from us. So if that's the game, if that's what it is, okay, fine. I'm gonna play the game by the same rules. Okay? So that's the second phase of the game. In doing things that may be so-called illegal to attain resources and monies that you need to survive. Right? And hopefully, maybe prosper, right? But as soon as you do that, guess what happens? That's when they send these goon squads in. That's the job of the goon squads and the black sites, to terrorize the people, mainly in the so-called black communities, and create all these dramatic so-called arrests, big so-called drug arrests, crime spree arrests, whatever the crimes may be or suspected crimes may be. And then they all sit around and after torturing us, they sit around patting themselves on the back, the chiefs patting themselves on the back and on the head, the mayor, the governor. Yes, we're doing a great job policing the city. We're being tough on crime. Things and problems that they've actually created by economically starving certain groups or specific groups of people. Do you see that, family? Yeah. So, for many of my white listeners, I know y'all struggling to hang in there, but y'all going, well, you gotta fight crime. You gotta take care of it. You gotta stop it. You can't have it. And, pull yourselves up by your bootstraps. So what bootstraps? All options, all opportunities or access to try to improve our lives economically have been either stolen from us, are being blocked from us, or are being taken from us, right? That's what economic starvation is. So, to be clear to my white brothers and sisters and anybody else, responding to economic starvation by where some people start to so-called do suspected illegal things to survive, that's a natural human response. If things get so bad for you, basically you got no food to feed your children, take care of your children, keep a roof over your head, etc., etc. Many people you're gonna basically do and try to survive by any means necessary, right? It has nothing to do with the so-called race of a people. Y'all say no? Well, guess what was it that y'all did during the so-called dark ages and medieval times when y'all, my white brother and sister, when your peoples was being economically starved, what did y'all do? Oh yeah. Y'all did the same survival things. Y'all started having wars against each other during the medieval period, and they were increasingly furious or ferocious. When they weren't being slaughtered by arrows and raining down bows from the sky, soldiers were hacked or pounded to death by swords, axes, and hammers. Medieval violence, remember, during economic starvation or resource starvation, medieval violence was sparked by everything from social unrest, economic starvation, food and resource shortages, economic starvation, and military aggression to family feuds, economic starvation, and rowdy students. Widespread fear of a diverse range of dangers, imagined or factual. Let that sink in, family. Y'all, my white brothers and sisters, is saying y'all had imagined or factual fears, it didn't matter, was quite common and experience for medieval people. So in other words, some of y'all fears were factual and some of them were just made up. Don't that kind of sound familiar today? Anyway, some of these collective fears still impact our modern times, such as the fear of war, resource shortages, violence, fear of monsters and strange creatures. Didn't we just have a bunch of alien reports come out? Fear of crime and natural disasters. So again, human beings turning to survival mode and basically trying to survive by any means necessary, it's not an issue of race. It's an issue of survival and being economically starved. Yeah. So when that happens, like I said, they send in the goon squad, and this is pretty much the general result, whether it be out on the streets or at some black site. And this is usually covered up by what? The actual investigation from the fellow officers. They just covered up. Investigation, as I've told y'all many times here, One Brothas Mind, investigation only means how are we going to cover this up. I don't care where the investigation is happening from and who's doing it. We got to find a way to cover this up or make it so-called lesser of an issue so we can just brush this under the rug, basically. That's what they're doing. That's what the FBI is doing. This article from NPR, made it sound like the FBI is investigating. Oh, they're about to really do. No. I'm going to show you something here in just a moment. So this, as I've told you many, many times, the terrorism from white supremacist race soldiers has been happening ever since slavery, during slavery, and all the time since. That's where you get the word officer from. It comes from overseer. Say it 4 times real fast. Overseer. Overseer, overseer, officer, officer, officer. I know most of y'all know that, but I'm trying to enlighten or make a few of my so-called white brothers and sister listeners, trying to make them woke to realize what's been going on. I know they just click stop play right there when I said that. So let's go on. All right. But again, the investigations are a cover-up. Why? Because this is what you're dealing with, what we've always been dealing with. You got the police officer that committed the deletion. You got the chief officer that was with them or supervising them that was like, what did you just do? Now we got to clean this up. So then the officers, they call in the FBI to investigate. which is the actual cleaner. If y'all saw the movie Pulp Fiction, if you haven't, please watch it. You'll see this, and it'll make perfect sense to you. The FBI is the official cleaner-upper of the situation. And then you have most of our white brothers and sisters over here to the right, to the side, just looking in on what's happening like, oh, okay, well, wow, that's interesting. Okay, next. Without a concern or care, because it's not, for the most part, it's not happening to them. Never has. Right? But that's all that's been going on. That's the game. Right? And why are all these entities, these officers, the FBI, the government, why have they been doing all this? It's on your screen. It's right in scripture. John chapter 8, verse 44. Because they, or ye, are of your father the devil, and the lusts of your father ye, or y'all, will do. He, being your father the devil, was a murderer from the beginning, and abode not in the truth. That's why they always lie. Because there is no truth in him. When he speaketh a lie, he speaketh of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. Yeah. They lie about everything. They even use the so-called mainstream media. That's why you ever notice, another little quick tip, when the mainstream media does reports on things like this, what's happening in Baton Rouge, it's barely a 30, 45-second report clip, and that's it. It's the shortest reports they can possibly do, because that's being done on purpose. They don't want to provide you with all the information on purpose. It's a part. They are also a part of the cover-up, the media, the mainstream media, which is why those of us in the B1 community, in the new black media, why we're doing the reports here on all your social media, because they are purposely not doing them, which is a perfect reason for you to smash the like button, share this report on all your social media with all your peoples, and be sure you and they are subscribed to One Brothas Mind, where we try to bring you the information and facts you need. But this is the game, y'all. It's always been happening. And it's still happening to this day. And again, my other point with this report is it's not just over here, not just a bad apple over there in this city or a bad apple. No. I showed you Mississippi. I showed you Memphis. I showed you Muncie, Indiana. I showed you Kansas City, Missouri. I showed you Los Angeles. I showed you another one from previous in Louisiana during Hurricane Katrina. Every major city and state in the United States has these goon squads and black sites. They've been having them. This is status quo. This is the normal mode of operation. Now, again, they don't take most of our white brothers and sisters through this torture, through this terrorism. So that's why when we as so-called black people are telling our white brothers and sisters of all the satanic hell that we're experiencing here in America, they don't believe us, because this never happened to them. They ain't being pulled over and all this stuff happening. They haven't been being taken to black sites. Yeah. Why are they taking us to black sites? It's on your screen, family. Many of them deny it. They dispute it. They hate it. They despise it. But they already know who we are, that we are Yah's chosen people. They already know that. So this is just a part of their campaign of warring with Yah. They can't physically war with Yah, so they choose to do the next best thing. War with Yah's chosen people, which is us. The descendants of the transatlantic slave trade and Arab slave trade. The descendants from the Hebrew Israelite tribe of Judah. That's who they're warring with. That's who they're enslaving and been oppressing and still are to this very day with their white supremacy. Okay? So, family, some of y'all is going, okay, I'm starting to get it. They are hunting us. So the question, family, to us is what you gonna do about it? And many of y'all sit around going, well, yeah, what can we do about it? What we gonna do? Would you think you're gonna vote your way out of this hatred, this terrorism? Okay, for the last 50, 70 years of voting, has that worked? No, and it never will. So what else? What other options do you have? Well, here at One Brothas Mind, I always like to try to provide solutions to the problems and torture and violence that we face. The ultimate solution is on your screen. You must know how the story ends. You do that by reading the Bible, the scriptures, studying them. Read the whole thing. And when you get to the end of the New Testament, as well as in various other places, you're going to read about end time prophecy, eschatology. And you'll read and be able to study and learn how the story ends. As the old saying goes in scripture, soon the last shall be first, and the first shall be last. Right? Our King is returning soon. Yeshua HaMashiach. And when he returns this time, ain't gonna be no, oh, let's sit down and talk about it. He's returning with the judgment of Yah. Right? So, just prior to our King's return, what must we do? Well, here it is right on your screen. Book of Deuteronomy, chapter 30. I encourage you to read the whole book of Deuteronomy. Many of y'all are familiar with Deuteronomy chapter 28, but you got to keep reading. Here's chapter 30, verse 2 through 7. We're going to focus on verse 3. The solutions for us, family, the descendants of Yah's chosen people. The Hebrew Israelites from the tribe of Judah, the so-called foundational Black Americans, so-called black people here in America and at the other transatlantic slave trade drop spots. Then the Lord thy Yah will turn thy captivity. Wait, what? Why would the Lord thy Yah turn our captivity? Because after you, or as you read scripture and study it, you should be learning that we are called to follow and be obedient to scripture. That's what Deuteronomy chapter 28 is all about. Yah tells us if we follow and obey scripture, here's how he's going to bless us. And then right after that, he starts to tell us if we don't follow scripture, here's how he's going to curse us. Partly with our captivity or enslavement, being taken away in ships, and so on and so forth. But if we return, or as we return to being obedient to scripture, and it picks up here in verse 3. Well, let's back up. Go up to verse 2. I want to be clear. Verse 2, and if shalt return, meaning if we, the descendants of the transatlantic slave trade, descendants from the Hebrew Israelite tribe of Judah, if we shall return unto the Lord thy Yah, and shall obey his voice according to all that I commanded thee this day, thou and thy children with all thy heart and with all thy soul. If we return to obeying all the commandments, statutes, and ordinances of Scripture, no paganism, just Scripture only, that then the Lord thy Yah will turn our captivity and have compassion upon thee, and will return and gather thee from all the nations whither the Lord thy Yah hath scattered thee. Transatlantic slave trade, Arab slave trade. We've been scattered to all the four corners of the world. He's going to gather us. And if any of thine be driven out unto the uttermost parts of heaven, from thence will the Lord thy Yah gather thee, and from thence will he fetch thee. And I'm at verse 5. And the Lord thy Yah will bring thee into the land which thy fathers possess, the promised land, and thou shalt possess it. And he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers. There's your solution right there. We have to return and follow and obey Scripture. And oh, by the way, verse 7, what happens to the people, to those that have persecuted us, slaved us, put us in black sites with their goon squads and terrorized us? What happens to all them and the countries that have enslaved us and done these same things? Verse 7, and the Lord thy Yah will put all these curses. Wait, what curses? The curses that have been on us? He's going to put all these curses that have been on us, he's going to put them where? Upon thine enemies, and on them that hate thee, which persecuted thee. There's your primary solution right there. But this is going to happen when and as we return to being obedient to Scripture and the commandments and statutes and ordinance of the Most High Yah. Do you see that? In addition to that, family, I'm here to just pose a question as well. As our brother Malcolm X says, self-defense is not violence, it's intelligence. So my question is, family, is it not time for us as a collective community to notify the U.S. government and every state and city government that we will no longer be submitting to their white supremacists, race soldiers, law enforcement officers? We're no longer, is it not time for us to say we're no longer going to surrender our power tools to them? Because all they're doing is torturing us, terrorizing us. That's all they're doing. And as I've shown you already, it's nationwide. It always has been. Is it not time for us to be pulling up on these racist, white supremacists, race soldiers? Pulling up on them? Pulling up on whoever else is involved in the legal system? The mayors, the governors, the judges, the whole system. Is it not time for us to be pulling up on them? I'm just asking questions. I don't condone any violence. I'm not promoting any violence. I'm just asking my so-called black brothers and sisters, has this time not come? Just a question. And with that said, family, I want to share with you an official word from our unofficial sponsor here at One Brothas Mind, Professor Truth. Shout out to Professor Truth for this sponsor, but this is an unofficial. This is not an official sponsor for One Brothas Mind. Okay? But I'm going to share this sponsor with you anyway.
A word from the official sponsor of Black Empowerment, Power Tools. There's no telling when something's going to come up, so make sure you carry your power tools at all times. You never know when you're going to need to bring the hammer down, or when you'll have some trash that needs to be blown away, or some obstacle that requires cutting down. Don't get caught empty-handed. Keep your hammer close by. Keep that leaf blower at the ready, and always carry your steel. Power tools, because no matter what you're
Let's do that one more time, family.
A word from the official sponsor of Black Empowerment, Power Tools. There's no telling when something's going to come up, so make sure you carry your power tools at all times. You never know when you're going to need to bring the hammer down, or when you'll have some trash that needs to be blown away, or some obstacle that requires cutting down. Don't get caught empty-handed. Keep your hammer close by. Keep that leaf blower at the ready, and always carry your steel. Power tools, because no matter what your day job or side hustle may be, there's no excuse for not being ready to put in some work.
And this concludes this broadcast for One Brothas Mind. We thank you for joining us. And as a part of the new Black media, B1 choices are mandatory and being on code is required. But never fear, Yeshua the Christ is with you always. Shalom.